Hello everyone, I've missed you. It's been a little while, not that long hopefully, but I was away from my sister's wedding for a few weeks. You can connect with me on Instagram if you want to see more day-to-day stuff, but we can talk about that in another video because it's time to face the music. This is not how I wanted my first video back to go. I saw the hype. I thought Bottoms was gonna be a new certified generational high school comedy classic. I love Shiva Baby, the director Emma Seligman's first film. I seriously, I just rewatched it. I think that film is so well executed. And I also love the two stars here, Rachel Sennott and Edebiri. But sadly, Bottoms, I don't think is awful or anything, but it definitely didn't live up to the hype for me. And I'm really excited to hear what you all think of it. I'm clearly in the minority, and I hope you'll hear me out anyways. I also kind of have a bone to pick with the movie hype cycle right now. It feels like every movie that's good gets blown up into like, it's the best of the decade, a new classic, it gets 4.2 stars on Letterboxd, and it usually evens out after the wide release. In my experience, they usually all end up being pretty good, but my point is that not everything can be a masterpiece to everyone, and it can be tough to avoid the subconscious expectations that come with that hype. The first time I saw Bottoms, I had a terrible seat. Some of the seats in movie theaters, I think it's no better than watching a cam rip of something. Not that I've ever done that. So I saw it a second time and really got down to the bottom of what didn't work for me. Pun not intended, actually. But if you haven't seen Bottoms, this film is very much an homage to and inspired by beloved high school comedies of old. If you're a fan of those kinds of movies like I am, you'll see references and similarities everywhere. Heathers, Not Another Teen Movie, Mean Girls, Pitch Perfect. There's a diner called But I'm a Diner. And basically what happens is that PJ and Josie start a self-defense slash fight club so that they can hook up with the girls they have crushes on. It's the super bad, I just want to get laid mission. And girls are motivated to join because there's this threat of the school's opposing football team, Huntington, I think. There's this long rivalry and they're apparently attacking people as this big showdown game gets closer. And to me, there are two big forms of a high school comedy. It can be a comedy that happens to take place in high school, like something like Superbad, or its comedy can be derived from satirizing a cliche high school movie like Not Another Teen Movie. That one's a full-on spoof, but sometimes it's like a blend of the two. I think Mean Girls does that really well, and I think that's what Bottoms is attempting to do. This movie is equal parts a more standard Superbad type movie, and then it has this surreal, absurd angle where totally unrealistic and exaggerated things will happen out of the blue, like extreme violence or the principal saying, "Will the ugly and untalented gays report to the office?" There are some things we knew were going to be true about this movie. The music by Charlie XCX and Leo Bierenberg rocks. There are some great needle drops, and you could tell from the trailer that the aesthetic of this film, like the costume and set design, it's very singular. It's probably the most distinct and neat thing about the film. I think they did a great job. And as I mentioned, it's led by two very talented and funny actresses, Rachel Sennott, who was the lead of Shiva Baby, and Edebiri, who just got her claim to fame in The Bear. The performances are one of, if not the strongest part of the film. Some unexpected standouts were Nicholas Galitzine as Jeff. He was giving very much Kenergy. I loved how campy and over the top his reactions were. Havana Rose Liu is not only gorgeous and graceful, but had a couple of her own singers in there. Marshawn Lynch was doing his best Tina Fey in Mean Girls. He was so funny. And Miles Fowler was also incredibly funny. I loved his energy. So I want to give them their flowers. This film has a great ensemble cast, but getting into this as a comedy, I have to be so honest that I did not laugh a lot at this movie, and that's why I need to hear from you guys, because I was kind of trying to read my crowd in the second regular showing. There are a couple of jokes that go for like suicide and school shooter type stuff that the crowd definitely didn't know how to respond to, but I'd say overall it was a lot more hit or miss than early reactions would have you believe. And there are a lot of great ideas in the humor. It was more the execution of it sometimes felt forced or the timing just wasn't right. And this is Emma Seligman's first time doing more slapstick comedy. Like in Shiva Baby, it's very dry. And this was co-written by Rachel Sennott. They'll send me to jail for saying I kind of thought the blooper reel at the end of the film was the funniest part. But this absurdist angle works best when it has this feeling of people just fucking around and being being unpredictable. I think those are the best parts of the film, along with the third act. I really enjoyed this final set piece that Seligman did, where it takes that absurdity all the way up. It's highly stylized, it's violent, it throws logic out the window. I thought it absolutely rocked and was a great note to end on. So most things can be traced back to this indecision between the absurd and the grounded. You don't really learn anything about these characters. You don't meet their parents, you don't know what they like to do, you don't know why they are the way that they are. Something that didn't matter at all in Not Another Teen Movie, but was like a crucial part of Mean Girls. So you're not really emotionally invested in what's going on. And I found Rachel Sennett's character actually actively unlikable, which is something she's known for. Like, that's her shtick, and it worked so well in Shiva Baby, because Shiva Baby is kind of poking fun at Gen Z apathy, and it was more irreverent and kind of examining her character. And even in Bodies, 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 she did this, and it worked really well there for the same reasons. But here it keeps you at a distance because she's so abrasive, and there was no redeeming this character in the end, in my opinion, but they kind of half-heartedly attempted it. The emotional aspect that I did enjoy was Ayo Edebiri and Havana Rose Liu. They actually had decent and cute chemistry, regardless of the character development. I also thought that Ruby Cruz gave a very sympathetic performance. After Shiva Baby, I was also honestly expecting something a little bit more innovative. I thought this felt pretty safe or restrained. I thought it could have been way raunchier. There's actually barely any raunch in this movie unless you count like saying sex words. I'm seeing people describe it as subversive, and I genuinely don't really know what they're referring to. Besides, I guess, the ending, all of it is pretty derivative or follows the standard narrative. One incredibly random thing that bothered me is that this very much feels like it has like a 90s aesthetic or something, but it's confirmed to take place in 2023. There's like a line of dialogue that confirms that, but there's not an iPhone in sight. It doesn't really feel like it takes place in modern day, and that's whatever. It gets confusing when there's this clash of like modern progressive thinking, but then also this very blatantly sexist and homophobic behavior that's played as a joke and doesn't make sense in that context. It's like this is actually kind of common in these films. It's like this alternate dimension of high school mishmash, and saying that out loud, I'm like, that sounds so rad, but for the execution, it kind of hints at this overall lack of cohesion with the narrative and the tone, because if it did go full throttle absurd, the inconsistency would feel like part of the bit, but instead it just threw me off a lot of the time. And in that way, it also felt like it might have undergone some botching in the editing room. It's a very short movie, which is awesome. Comedies don't often need to be really long, but there are some narrative beats that just come up and feel totally random, like there should have been context established beforehand. I think especially with the Fight Club and the football rivalry, I would have loved to actually have seen these attacks or see the other team in action, so you have some sense of geography of the conflict, you know? There's also this very cliche, like this whole thing was built on a lie and everyone found out and you look like an asshole arc that I thought was very meh. Also, no party scene. That's like a teen movie staple. So ultimately, to me, this feels like more of an offshoot of popular high school comedies rather than a new timeless classic. But for a lot of people, this combination of things is creating a really funny experience, and that's awesome. I was just never personally able to lock in. But I also don't want to overcorrect because the hype was still strong. There is still fun to be had here. It has a great aesthetic, a couple killer performances, and it's more than watchable. I simply had a lot more issues than I thought I was going to, so I'm going to give Bottoms 3 out of 5 stars. I think Emma Seligman should have made a college movie. I think that feels much more suited to her humor and style. I don't know, I just feel like I'm going crazy at the funniest movie of the year comments. I think The Blackening and Barbie are currently holding that spot for me. But those are my thoughts on Bottoms, guys. Let me know if you've seen this, if you plan on checking it out. It is having a limited/slow rollout, so hopefully it's playing near you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and keep an eye out for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.